Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Now, officially, we begin, and welcome to our ninth live event. It's very thrilling, at least to me. We are X Technology, and I'm Alex. I'm going to be hosting it a bit, but we have actually the real hero is Dima, who's going to be presenting the Flutter project. Well, we had introduction already a few sessions ago. If you Google it, it's Sail Map API and the GetConf introduction on YouTube on our channel. Yeah, we also have an expert. This is Kirill. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself in a few minutes. So just a few words about us. We are like a collaboration of people who are talking about talking and working on different technologies, from programming to DevOps and machine learning, data science, artificial intelligence. We actually growing in different areas as well. And we kicking off our projects. So we challenge our projects together with these kind of meetups, and we welcome every one of you. If you want to participate, if you want to be an expert for the next session, or just want to collaborate on some of the projects that we're doing, you are very welcome. We will be happy to see you. Um, yeah, I think with that, I will just give a word to Kirill. Kirill, can you say a few words about yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Kirill. I work as a head of mobile at Muse, and we have a like maybe 2 years journey with Flutter. Our application was migrated to Flutter and was released in production 1.5 years ago. And currently, we are in the middle of migrating another mobile application to Flutter. So yeah, basically. I was inspired by that. I pushed it to accept it. This pretty new technology back then, and still kind of new. So yeah, I was really interested in participating in this workshop, and yeah, looking forward to see what you're doing with it.
Thanks. That's actually a very interesting background. Just one question. So you said you migrated the apps, I guess, from native technologies, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, nice. Well, that sounds very nice. Okay, yeah, the main
Yeah.
part, Dima.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dmitro. I'm from Amsterdam. Well, originally from Ukraine. Now I work and live in Amsterdam. Work for KPN, which is the biggest Dutch mobile telecom operator. And there I do mostly backend with Python and some of front end with React Native. And recently I've just joined another project that's building components with Vue.js. So kind of everything all around. So today I'm gonna present the second part of my journey with Flutter. So the first part was just the project introduction and how it should look like eventually and why do I do it. So let me briefly recap that. So I decided to create a small application that will track give the ability to user to track the conferences, upcoming conferences, maybe sign up for alerts or maybe sign up for price changes, and generally just have a calendar of conferences that will be hosted in future. Why did I do that? Is first of all, it's really hard for me, especially to get a grip of which conferences are there out in the world. So I decided to build a tool for that. Well, sounds easy. Why did I choose Flutter? Well, a friend of mine just said, "Yeah, check it out. I think it's a very cool framework, and especially that I've been also doing Dart before as a part of my learning path for Angular 2. So it was, I think, about 6 years ago or so. So yeah, and I've heard that Dart is really close to JavaScript, but we're going to talk about that a bit more in detail today. Um, yeah, the second reason why I chose Flutter is that I think I've heard about it on a lot of podcasts and read about it in a lot of articles on Medium, for example, recently. So I believe that the platform itself is getting bigger and more popular. And yeah, from what I heard on those podcasts and read on the articles, it should be not that hard to get a grasp on. So let me maybe dive into the current status of the application from the start. So my journey with Flutter began with not with the official documentation, when I just read through it maybe real quick, but then I decided, okay, how hard can it be? Just Google up an article that gives you like a brief dive in on how you could call an API and display some stuff on the on your mobile screen, and that would be it. So I went for it, and that was a bad idea because that article, most of the articles that you can find about Flutter and Dart, they generally show you some really basic stuff like display a counter, maybe with a button, and when you hit the button, the counter number just increases, and that's it. Not a lot of articles give you something more in detail. So that was my first mistake, that I went for the article instead of the main Flutter or other documentation. The other thing that I made mistake on, I've read about this really interesting block architecture. The block stands for business logic something. And I said, yeah, okay, it sounds reasonable. So I went for article that was called Block Architecture Implementation in Flutter, and I found not really good article about it that actually has nothing to do with block at all. So that led me to this current state of the application I have, which is to my best understanding could be described as a mess. Let's maybe dive in a little bit why. So this is the main Flutter file, which is called main Dart. And this is what you get when you just run Flutter CLI to create a new application, basically. But this one is a little bit tweaked. So I think I've changed the background color. Yeah, I've added this visual density for some reason. I don't even know why, but that was in the article, I guess. It didn't even explain why I did it, why it should be done. But anyway, so other things I have in the application is a business logic file that should be responsible for getting the data and providing that data eventually to views. So this is what you could call in Angular a service, basically. Then there is a model description. So everything that Dart is strictly typed. So everything you get every type of data structure you operate with should be described as a class. So yeah, this, for example, is a representation of an upcoming event. So I thought that it would be nice if an event had an ID, a title, a poster, which would be either, yeah, for now it's just a string. So I thought it would be an URL to an image, just a small description of overview, maybe URL, of course, a time of the event, and location and rating. So maybe in future, I thought it would be nice if people could vote for event or not. So this is the model. It seems quite straightforward, except for this construction, well, doesn't look like something you'd see in JavaScript. So it's like a generic with string and dynamic. Why string and why dynamic? I still don't know. So that was my first fail, not reading through Dart and not refreshing my memory on how Dart operates. So a lot of stuff I read in the article, I just couldn't simply understand. So if you do something new or try to refresh your memory on some old technology they haven't used for a while, I think would be a good idea to go over it once again. Why did I say that there is a similarity to JavaScript? Well, you can see that, kind of this word is similar to JavaScript. It looks like maybe a class or something, or these special accessors are kind of looking like JavaScript. But for example, this stuff that looks like a JavaScript arrow function, well, with JavaScript arrow function, you only pass on the context to the function body itself. In Dart, it's not like that. It's just arrow function means that you only return some sort of a statement. And that could be a very interesting caveat if you're coming from JavaScript. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say about getting your knowledge refreshed. So the second model here I have is just a response that I get from a backend. But basically, it's just a list that eventually is mapped, like every item in the list is mapped to an occasion model that I've shown you before. Quite straightforward, nothing special, nothing fancy. Then there is a pages folder that, to my understanding, should represent the pages of your application. So for now, I only have one page, which is home page, and every view representation in Flutter is a widget. So everything you see on the screen that we'll get to in a couple of minutes is a widget. Widgets could be stateful or stateless. So homepage, for me, should be a stateful widget, but at this point, I don't even know why. So I think because some logic might happen here, but again, it was taken out of the article. Unfortunately, don't really understand still why it should be a stateful widget. Anyway, this is just like a container div, I would say, that has that contains some other widgets that eventually will be transformed to everything that we see in the application, which is kind of straightforward. You can see icons here, drawer, which is application drawer, I think, and yeah, you have this neat center container and other things here as well.
Dima, may we interrupt you? Is that okay?
Sure.
So first, we have a question from it on the screen. So with this one, what rules do you use Linter for Dart?
Sorry, I lost. What rules do you use Linter for?
Do you use any Linter on this project?
So yeah, actually, the Linter itself is, I think, a part of extension for Dart and Flutter in VS Code. So if you install the Dart extension here in VS Code, it will give you almost everything you need out of the box. So for Dart and then for Flutter, I think that those are two different ones, but this is the most powerful one you can get, I think. I haven't unfortunately checked out other IDEs, for example, Emacs, but I'm pretty sure that if VS Code has integration with all this, then Emacs should have it as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, go check out the
Yeah, thanks for that. I have another one, but that for both for you and Kirill maybe. So Kirill, if you look at this setup, how does it sound to you? Is it something that you would expect from a Flutter project, or you already see some gaps or caveats or something uncommon, let's say, to this technology?
Well, it's pretty, I would say it's pretty early to say at the moment. Yeah, basically, it's interesting that you've chosen the block architecture. We are actually using block architecture in our projects as well. I like it a lot. When maybe one already small point from me, that I see that you're generating from JSON methods manually. Like basically in Dart and Flutter, we there are not so lot of functionalities in the language itself, so we highly rely on the code generation stuff. And for example, for the serialization and deserialization, there is an awesome library that is called JSON Serializable that does all this stuff for you, at least for generating these two JSON and JSON methods.
Okay, I will write it down. Thank you.
Yeah, sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, Igor, Mila, any questions? So let's move forward. What do you think?
I'm good. I'm listening.
Okay. Then the stage is Mila. Okay. Stage is you again, Dima.
Nothing.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. So homepage, straightforward. Then there is a concept of repository. So I think that's like a development pattern. I've never seen it before in React or in Angular. So probably it's specific either to Dart, or maybe it's specific to mobile, or maybe it's specific to Flutter. I don't know. But basically what it does, it's like a class that's handling your requests to your API. That's what I can say. Again, this code pretty much was I got from an introduction article. So there are a couple of ways you could do requests. You could use this DO library, which is just a library handling HTTP calls. But there is also a built-in HTTP client into Flutter that you could also use. I didn't see much of. I didn't dive into a lot to like what are the differences between the two. I've just went with the flow, and it seems to do the job. I don't know what might be the difference. I believe if this is a third party, it's not built into Flutter, so I think it might have a bit more extended functionality. But I didn't get to it just now. So maybe in future sessions, I will dive deeper into that. Maybe when there is something to create, there might be differences, or something to update might be differences, or maybe if you have subsequent calls, maybe there is a difference, or either of those. So we'll see that maybe in the future. I don't know. And the article itself also said that, yeah, it would be nice if you have a style folder with actually defining the colors, or maybe some other constants that you will need in your application in order to run it smoothly and in the design that you've expected it for. One very big caveat I've got into here in Dart, the representation of color is not like in CSS. So for example, in CSS, if you would like an alpha channel added to your color definition, you would do something of a sort. So first a red, then green channel, then blue, and then alpha, like this, for example. But it's not in Flutter. In Flutter, you have alpha channel in the first two numbers here, basically. So this is your alpha, which is very, very interesting. I couldn't understand it until I went and read the documentation, of course. So it's really nice to read documentation. This is, I think, the main motto of today's presentation. Please read the official docs. It will make your life easier. Yeah, that leads us to eventually widgets folder that would at this point contains only one widget, because I have it on only one widget added to my application at this point. And this is the like a view like a component in React Native, or a component in Angular, that will eventually display and display stuff, and probably handle the interactions with our calendar. Yeah, and at this point, it's everything in one file. So it renders the calendar, it renders the selected events, it renders it handles the clicks on those events, it handles it clicks on everything. It handles actually data getting as well. So right here in the initialization of the state, I go and say to my business logic component, yeah, go ahead and just create a response to backend, and please handle the data here. But this is not the correct way to do it, and we'll see why, I think, in a couple of minutes. So maybe there are any questions at this point, because I'm about to go to the next part.
Yeah, let's quickly check. Not from my side, I would say. I written down some of the remarks that you made. I'm personally interested to back to arrow function remark that you did, and maybe to generics if we have time, but not for now. I would say let's not lose the main flow.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the motto. Please read official docs. That should be our title, I guess.
Yeah, that could really help. Okay, so why I believe this widget now is not correctly organized. So this is, first of all, this is at this point is a mix of business logic, so getting the data, and then displaying the data, which should not be the case, because, well, every time you mix those two, it ends up being a spaghetti code, or it's really hard to refactor or really hard to extend either of those. So just pick one. But why did I come to this state? So, for example, if I would do a simple JavaScript application, how would I typically go to get data? I would do something like fetch, and then provide a URL to fetch, and then I would get a promise, of course, in the result, and I would say, yeah, then if I have any data, just display stuff, and it will work. So I thought, okay, I think something should be available in Dart as well, but not quite. So that's when I remembered how I've done stuff in Angular 2 at the time. So in Dart, everything, all the HTTP calls, I might be mistaken at the point, maybe there's something else, but at least from what I understand now, everything is an observable. So for example, if we look at this repo, what it does, it actually creates a behavior subject, which is a concept from our RX library. In this particular example, it's RX Dart. So it's a reactive library. So it creates a behavior subject and gets the data from the HTTP call, but then it actually adds that data to the stream, to behavior subject, because it's like a stream. It adds the data to that stream. So the stream should be handled in a bit different way. So this is the JavaScript way, but for streams, and I think it started for me at least with Angular 2, it would be like, yeah, get observable. Oh, I cannot. I tried it because it's actually there. So at this point, I say, yeah, please, my business logic component, just go ahead and fetch me the data, and I will listen to it. So how am I listening to it? I'm going to the same business logic component. I'm getting the behavior subject on it, and I'm subscribing to updates on that behavior subject to get the data. And this listen function is fired every time I get the data here. And then what I do is I use this set state function to update the state of the whole widget. This widget is actually a stateful one, so that's why, yeah, I need something changed. I got the data from backend, so I need that widget to know that, okay, you're now having a new state. That's here I kind of handle the error just really easily, just to debug print, see what happened, or it just failed. And then I say, okay, the list of occasions for this specific widget that was defined here will now have new data that came from this behavior subject here. So this is this construct I've seen in Angular 2. I know that I think now it's also used in Angular 8 or 9, whatever the version is. It's not that you cannot see that often in React or React Native, because there most of the time you have I think Redux or MobX or whatever state manager, but yeah, you only just get the state, you get the state object, and then React handles everything for you. So if something new happens to the state, then it will re-render the component fully. So here you have to do that yourself, basically. So you have to say, yes, please set state here. And then after the state has changed, I assume that everything will, the build function of the widget should be a build method from the widget should be triggered once again. So that's that. This is the Flutter, or maybe Dart. I guess it's Flutter way, not Dart way, of how you do stuff. Of course, when you subscribe to something, I think there should be a way to eliminate subscription when you, for example, leave the screen with the widget that has the subscription to a behavior subject. This is not implemented here, but I think there should be a method, like, I don't remember its name, but maybe disassemble or something, like destroy, whatever. So it's like a component lifecycle in React. We have a widget lifecycle in Flutter as well. And in that end of the lifecycle method of a widget, I would unsubscribe to the subscription I had before. But it's not implemented here. Just for the sake of presentation, I didn't need it. I only have one page, so it doesn't matter if I need to refresh everything. I just reload the full application. But generally, I think that's a good idea. But one question I do have at this point, I'm not sure that it should be here anyways, because this is not the correct way to do it. And why this is not the correct way to do it? So let's go a bit to our representation state. So what I do here, I say, yeah, please, this widget, which is called occasions calendar, please render me a table calendar widget that is actually an open source widget I took from, it's from PubDev. So this is how it looks like. I found it just Googled it up. It's basically what I need. So it's a calendar that can have events. And when you select a day in the calendar, it just shows you a list of events. Pretty neat. But one caveat I didn't understand here is that in order to provide the events that will be displayed here in this list or as dots on the calendar here, I have to provide not the stream of data, but the list of data. So that's why I had to dance with all this get data here, listen for it here, and transform it to a normal list of data to be saved in a widget state like this here, only because this calendar does not accept anything but a raw list of with this particular example, items of an occasion class. So that's why this is a very ugly thing to do. I just check if I have a list of items that has length more than 0, then please go ahead and render everything. Otherwise, not render anything. To my understanding, this doesn't look like a pure function at all. It looks like something really, really strange. So I believe there should be another way. And in fact, there is. So the concept of block library in Flutter and Dart is nicely described in, no, not here, in block library.dev here. So there are a couple of things you could do. Why do you actually need this block library? What it does, it's like a pattern to follow with a lot of pre-built classes and widgets for you that handles the state of your widgets in a correct way and the state of eventually the state of your applications in the correct way. There are a couple of things here that allow you to better deal with fetching the data, for example, from here, and handling the states of the data. So first of all, there are two main concepts in the block. I don't even know how to call it, block architecture. So first one is a qubit, and the second one is actually block. Block is a subset of qubit. So how do you, what would be a qubit? It is a class that has a state. It's an instance of a class that has a state, and that state could be updated with calling an external function for it to update. For some reason I cannot find it here. That easy documentation here doesn't really looks really nice, unfortunately. This is Qubit, but there should be also the presentation of.
Dima, do you mind if we get into maybe to refresh us a bit? Does anyone have a question or maybe comment so far for what you guys seen? Maybe it's to Kirill first.
Basically, I have some more general question. As I said before, like I like that you've chosen block architecture for this. But did you consider, like, since you're basically front-end developer, you're familiar with it, why didn't you consider to use React architecture for Flutter library as well, for Flutter app as well? Because I think it's also very popular in the Flutter world.
I didn't know it existed. For Flutter.
I thought, Dima, you said that the block is a kind of Redux way. Is it actually similar somehow? It's a completely different concept.
Well, it is a state manager. Well, it is a pattern to manage your state. Let's call it like this. It's not like a built-in library that manages your state for you. No. It is a way to manage your state. So I actually didn't know there was a Redux architecture for Flutter. So yeah, that's cool to know. Maybe it was, maybe it would be much easier for me. But as I said, one of the reasons I've chosen this, it was a friend of mine just said, yeah, just go and try out block. I think you'll like it. So that's what I did.
Okay, sounds reasonable. I have other question. It's about reactive streams. I'm also using reactive streams in the other project. Have two questions. First one is, do you know if Dart has iterators as for example, JavaScript has asynchronous iterators? I think it's what we're looking for.
Well, I think it does, because I've seen the yield keyword somewhere. Actually, I've seen it here in the documentation. So I believe that, yeah, I'm not sure if that's applicable to, for example, lists, or if you want an iterator that eventually will give you a list, have comprehended as a list at some point. So that I don't know, but maybe, maybe in time I will know, not now.
Mm-hmm. Is it actually, please go ahead.
Right?
So to me, indeed, like iterator is a nice alternative, right, to observable libraries, at least, like to use operators and stuff. You can just use a native functionality, but that depends on the best practices, I would say. So that's again, my question to Kirill is that is it common, or is it it's not very useful to use asynchronous iterators in Dart if they exist, of course.
Yeah, there are like both synchronous and asynchronous iterators. It's really very common pattern to use them, and in many cases they just like ease your life.
Yeah, right. And thanks. I have just a small remark about reactive streams. Just to drop it and see what's your reaction would be. So I stated it maybe before, but for me, like benefits of using reactive library and reactive streams, I identified this first you have standard operators, you have also standard iterators and flows. It's asynchronous and it's immutable. Anything to add to this list, or maybe to cut from this list? Benefits, maybe drawbacks?
Yeah, well, the drawback would be you need to, as I said, you have to manage your subscriptions to streams, right? So it's really easy to subscribe to different stuff and not remove the subscription after your element, for example, was removed from the viewport. If we are talking about, if we're talking about UI representations. And in some languages, for example, in JavaScript, I think there could be an issue with reference counter to those subscription that will eventually lead to a memory leak.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be an issue. So you have to really, really be careful with the things you're subscribing to. And well, that's at least from my experience, what I had before.
All right. Okay, let's move forward.
Yeah, so really quick introduction to Qubit. So this is a class that extends this Qubit class here, and it has a sort of a state. So for example, this particular Qubit is just a class that has a state of integer value, and it has one method, increment. So you can change the state of this class by calling the increment method on it, like this here. So this looks like something a bit better than I had in my behavior subject in repository here, because it at least gives you some way of interacting with your what might be called a model, and that model could have its own state, and that state could be updated via external methods, not just directly subscribing to a stream of it. And your representation or not just syncing stuff to the stream, and your representation could be changed on whatever there is inside the state at the time. So already we have a little bit of like split of representation and business logic, which could be nice. It also has, you could subscribe to changes of that state and be happy about it, basically. But then there is one more concept, which is a business logic concept or block that is exactly the same Qubit, but it consumes the changes to its state are not consumed or defined via calling the methods of the class, but by providing an events to it. So here we see a bit of similarity to what Redux does. So you are calling, emitting an event. Redux just says, hey, I know what to do with that event and how to react to the to that event and how to update the state on that event. But here you have to operate on that event in a specific class or instance of that class, which leads you to maybe a better separation of logic in the components of your application or the modules of your application. So this map event looks like a much better way to update the state of your whatever module or whatever widget you are working on, or whatever business logic you are trying to implement. This particular concept I've also seen in Elm. I've seen it, yeah, as I said, in Redux, Mobax, and I'm not sure if I've seen it. I think there is a sort of representation of that in Angular, but I don't remember really well. I think, yeah, there was an effects library, I guess, so that's kind of something similar, but it looks much nicer. So how it should have been done in my particular scenario. So the business logic element here, the class, should have had a number of actual events that it should respond to. For example, event call API, event get data from API. And these events could be mapped to a state that it has right now. And the state would be API called, data received, or error received. And according to that state, which would also be a behavior subject, the changes of states will come into a stream of data. So there could be a time when you could just say, okay, if the error received from after the get data from API was called, we'll try again. And then after a second try, for example, this state in the behavior subject here would have changed from failed to all good. So this seems like, okay, I'm separating business logic from the representation, and I can react in my representation to whatever state my business logic component is at right now. This the part what I missed from the official documentation of Block. So again, please read the official docs. It might save you some nerves and some time, and a lot of time on debugging and understanding how things work. And eventually, what I should have been doing here, if I would have said there is I think a widget called Block Builder, which actually allows you to consume a state of any block, and then just say, yeah, state get data, and that data would have been put to this table calendar as the events that I've been ifing on here. So it would be much easier not having this if statement here, but saying, yeah, if there is a not if, but react to a state of the block, like by either rendering out the table calendar or by rendering out an error if the current state of the business logic component was an error. So that would be a correct representation of business logic architecture from at least what I understood right now. And again, read the documentation. It's really, really nice. There is a great tutorial in blocklibrary.dev, and it's called a weather application, building a weather application, which basically covers everything you need in order to achieve, in order to call some API via HTTP, transform everything that you get to a representation, and it actually is built with block architecture and in a absolutely proper way, how it should have been designed. My mistake was just going for the low-hanging fruit by Googling up stuff and just picking the smallest article I could find and just go over it and try to implement it. But with all that said, let me see if I missed something really bad. I think not really bad. So I can try now to run at least a debugger on this and see how it works. Yeah. What's happening? Why? Maybe because yeah. So the application should be launching now. It's pretty neat still. I haven't seen such level of integration of any IDE with a debugger as I've seen in Flutter and Dart. It's pretty amazing. Even React Native is not that integrated. In order to debug React Native application, you have to run a third-party app somewhere that actually consumes a lot of resources of your machine.
As been said in the last one, I think maybe Xcode has right. It's maybe Xcode is a kind of comparable experience.
Unfortunately, I'm not a native developer. I never worked with Xcode. Unfortunately, only if I have to really badly, then sometimes I had to build React Native applications in Xcode. But I cannot elaborate on that. So that's that. This is the app at its state right now. So the calendar shows actually selecting the dates with the data that's been requested from an API that is running on my local host and port 3001 is there. That API, by the way, is a simple Express JS application that just says, yeah, if you have a GET request on this URL, please respond with these two JavaScript JSON objects in a list. That's it. And yeah, it's actually the way the data is provided.
Nice, and it's a REST
One more
API, right?
caveat.
You call in the REST API endpoint, right? Is it in your Flutter?
Yeah, it's a real one. If I reload it, it will just say, yeah, occasions requested. This logs calls here, and that's how it works. One caveat I've experienced with working with datetime format in Flutter. So this specific table calendar widget has an event on day selected that provides you with provides you with a callback function that would be called on that event. And to that callback function, it passes some parameters, one of which is the datetime representation of the date that you selected. And that datetime representation would be, by default, in UTC format. So, okay, that's fine, I thought. But the date I got at first if I go back to my model here, that just says, yeah, basically the transformation from JSON to the instance of an occasion class will what I've done is I use this datetime, which I think is a built-in to Dart. I don't know how to even say functionality. It's part of a standard library, and it has a parse function that, if you look at it, it just says, yeah, if you get a date from in this format, it will be fine. So that's exactly what I did at first with this datetime. So I said I returned the datetime like this, 21, or yeah, be 5th month, right? But that won't be the case. So this parsing of this string in a format that described here won't give you back the UTC format of the date. It will give you back something different. And if eventually, when I eventually got to compare which events should be displayed here in the bottom after I select a specific date, well, the date that was provided by the click handler of this table component wasn't matching the one that was provided to me by for that specific event in the API, because again, this wasn't a UTC. So that's why I had to go back to my JavaScript API and provide a UTC date on it. So that was a very interesting caveat. I'm not really used to working with days a lot. So keep that in mind. Maybe it will come in handy at some point. Yep, that was a interesting caveat I want to talk about. So maybe I don't know. Should I just answer a few questions, or?
Yeah, I just that's my question. Is it the date thingy that you been talking about? Is that the Dart library, or is it part of a language even, or yeah, what is this dates that you showed?
It seems like this is a datetime Dart, so it's a part of the standard library.
Okay.
I suppose.
Yeah, the dates are not easy in all languages, and especially when you have to convert it from server side on client side. That's I think it's usual problems you have in them.
Exactly, but what I also found is that this datetime format, this datetime built-in functionality in Dart actually is very powerful, and it gives you a lot of stuff out of the box, which, for example, in JavaScript you would use Moment.js for. So I think it's very good, almost like in Python.
If we have talked about JavaScript now, then it will be raise. I don't know how many people will start arguing that. I guess I mean Moment.js, using Moment.js and stuff. But yeah, we're not in JavaScript, luckily.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. All right. So next time, I hope that we'll get to a real detail event page. So maybe I will have more pages on the application. I hope that I will. And maybe we'll talk about how to handle that, or I will at least present how I comprehended it. Of course, I will rewrite everything to better usage of block architecture, or maybe even consider looking into Redux architecture in Flutter, because, well, that sounds promising as well. But yeah, maybe I just stick to block because I already know how to work with Redux, but not with block. I also wanted to provide a subscription to test to an event. So I don't know how it will look like at this point, but I'll come up with something. And of course, would be really nice to tailor it back to not to a simple Node.js Express stubbed application, but to something real. And for that, actually, I've yesterday found a very nice solution, which is this repo here, full stack fast API Postgres SQL example. what it does, it's just a Python cookie cutter. So if you're familiar with Python cookie cutters, you can use this repo to be passed to your cookie cutter pip package, and it will create for you a very powerful thing, which I can really quickly show right now. Yeah. So it will create for you a front end with Vue.js for your simple CRUD application for users. It will create a backend application, backend fast API Python application for you as well. It will add a database running in a Docker image, which is Postgres or MySQL to one of your choosing, which better fits you. And it will set up the whole development environment for you. So you'll just have to run docker compose up -d or not d if you want it attached, not detached. And there you go. You'll have everything running out of the box straight away, which is amazing, I think. So next time, next time I'll try to tailor it, tailor the main application to a backend running on FastAI and the things I've discovered. And yeah, we'll see how it goes.
All right, I would say very intense presentation. Thanks, Dima. Yeah, there are some questions. Maybe we can answer them. Alexander is asking, would you like to use gRPC?
Well, gRPC, it's really interesting. I haven't used it for a while now. I don't even remember what would I use it for here. And I don't know if that's a possibility to use gRPC in Flutter. If it is, I would definitely consider it.
Luckily, we have an expert here.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, there is a possibility. I think it's, I even saw some projects that are actively using gRPC. They have the code generation libraries for that. So I'm not sure, how effective, not effective, of course it will be effective, but how it makes sense to use for that. I don't think that you will be working with like tens of thousands of items where it really makes sense to use like all the benefits of it, but from the technological point of view, yeah, it's absolutely doable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, I was wondering, Dima, you when you said about the plans, subscription to event, is that something like if, for example, event is in Eventbrite or in meetup.com, you want to provide the button to register for it for a user?
No, I meant more like subscription. Like you are interested in this event, and all the updates will be provided to you when it's something happens.
Okay.
Or
okay.
It will pop up with a push notification maybe an hour before it happens, or 5 minutes before it happens, or when it's live. Yeah.
Yeah. Righty. Maybe you guys have something to add or ask Dima.
Well, I could say that it was quite interesting to listen in, and since I'm not an expert in this field, I was learning, and not really something specific I could ask. Thank you for the presentation.
I really like the motto of the presentation, read the documents.
Yeah, RTFM, that's our motto.
Yeah, and maybe a small notice from me as well. Like, I would say that really, you can really feel it a lot that Flutter was made by the same people that are standing behind native Android. So yeah, for Android developer, for me as mainly an Android developer, native Android developer in the past, it seems more natural. All the patterns are more natural. For example, even in such a small details like you've mentioned the color format RGB, where it's RGBA in CSS and ARGB in Flutter. I think it was done like that because in native Android it was like that, ARGB. So yeah, you really feel this. Or you've mentioned this DO library. I think it was heavily inspired by a very popular OK HTTP library in native Android. And when you use it combined with retrofit library, which also was inspired by retrofit library for Android, it's really powerful. It generates you REST API methods implementations where you just define interfaces and that's it. So yeah, whoever comes from native Android background, Flutter will be even more easier to dive into.
Okay, so yeah, you see, you have all these libraries that unfortunately weren't even described or mentioned in any of the articles that I've read through. So yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, nice, nice. Thanks for feedback. That's indeed very very informative. I wanted in the beginning of the talk, I wanted to ask you about this arrow function because I had not fully understood the thing. What's the difference if you compare it with a JavaScript vault? Just for my better understanding.
So if I might say something incorrect, but from my understanding, an arrow function in Dart is just a statement if you return a statement. So you cannot have like a huge body of a function. You just return a statement and that's it.
Okay. It immediately triggers some memories about pizza script, like statement versus expressions. And the difference is basically the statement doesn't return a value while expression does. So it's professional deformation.
Maybe then, maybe then I'm wrong, and it's just an expression that should return the value immediately.
No, it's not that you're wrong. It's just if you spend some time with some topic, you get hard to get rid of it. And you also had a remark about the generics. I was not sure if I understood it. So to me, it looked fine actually. So it was just a declarative type, I think. And is there something that specifically not a regular generic or typing in here?
No, I meant maybe I got. Maybe I didn't say it correctly. So this looks like a normal generic for me. It's not that, but I don't understand what this dynamic is, for example, and I cannot go to it to find out what's happening there.
Is it an any like in a TypeScript, Kirill? Is that like any type? Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically the same as any type in TypeScript. You're just saying to compiler, hey, there can be any type. So you're switching all this static typing.
Okay. Yeah, easy. And I guess it's not the best practice.
Read the docs.
Yeah.
It's not the best practice, but yeah, this is one of I would say this is one of few places where this dynamic is actually should be used. But and yeah, actually, luckily, recently we had this Flutter 2.2 version with Dart updated to 2.13, where we have type defs not only for functions but also for any other types. So that I think soon we will have everything instead of map, string, dynamic, something. There will be just type aliases for all these types, and it will be more readable.
Yeah, that makes sense, actually.
Yeah, sounds cool.
Sounds cool.
Okay. Anything else, or shall we wrap it up? I think we are perfect in time. I very enjoyed the talk very much. So that was a very useful morning, I would say.
And maybe some advertisement here.
So, yes, please go ahead, Dima.
Yeah, we now have a Telegram channel which will host all the events we'll actually event description channel that will eventually get to this application here. So you can find it if you do GetConf. Search for GetConf.
I just posted it in the chat as well. Yeah, nice.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you want to register your event, for example, just reach us out, and yeah, it will appear in there. Nice. I'm actually looking forward to contribute somehow to this project myself. So for example, I thought I could maybe do something with the API whenever you're ready. So I'm just waiting for this opportunity when you publish a piece of the application that is ready or something. Yeah, then I think that's it.
Great. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think we can also say that in 2 weeks we have the next event.
Yeah.
And we're almost defined with the topic.
Yeah, we are indeed. We can announce it as usual between this date and the other week. I hope so, but we need to first synchronize ourselves and yeah, be sure. So stay tuned, please, and yeah, everyone have a nice weekend.
Yeah, and thanks for coming and discussing it and watching. See you.
Happy Thursday, Igor.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Thanks.
See you.
Happy weekend.
Bye.